Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Okay, sorry, hold on. Welcome back, Center. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Okay, so continuing now the conceptual translation series. We're talking about, the past few videos we've been talking about trying to really understand the full scope of the philosophical, and then obviously philosophical first, and then we'll get into the practical, common sense view, for lack of a better word, of these systems that we're importing. Okay, so with respect to one of the conversations we've been having a lot, the Buddhist and the Tantric and the Bodhisattva conversation. I'm trying to just bring to our attention that there's a different psychological substructure at play that we are not necessarily prepared to entertain, if you follow what I'm saying. Christianity, the exoteric Christianity, essentially says that life is hard. Fundamentally, it's hard and it's sinful on the surface, and you have to purify your sinful nature.
Like there's something inherently wrong with you to begin with.
Right. So when we hear the first of the Four Noble Truths, that the truth of suffering, we think that we understand what that means. That suffering is reality, and that I have to the bootstrap thing, or carry my burdens and whatever, man up and just endure and all this, get tough type of thing. And the first noble truth isn't their view of reality. Their view of reality is that it's bliss. That you're inherently you're not sinful. There's nothing to purify inherently. You're inherently already pure. And if there's when we hear the word purification anywhere in yoga, anywhere in meditation arena, it doesn't mean that you're inherently wrong. It means that you've constructed a habit that's preventing you from understanding your own inherent blissful nature. So the view that we're importing, mindfulness, loving kindness, all of the Buddhist, Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana, that's everywhere in dialogue, that view holds as its fundamental ground, in a way, that reality is blissful. Not that you're born into suffering. Not that you're born a sinner. That every single thing that you interact with is by nature bliss. It's made of bliss. Okay? Now, the second thing that turns us off is when we hear the word bliss, we think, I'm going to have the biggest orgy, and I'm just going to hold this vibe and just orgasm forever, or I'm going to get high and twisted and woo and go crazy. And we think that when we hear the word bliss, we think the bliss that me as a person, I'm going to extract out of a situation and experience for myself. And that's not their understanding of bliss. Their understanding of bliss is interfacing with other in creative, compassionate, responsible ways. The bliss of interacting with other in responsible, creative, compassionate ways. Again, because we're also importing the view that no thing exists independently. So the bliss can't be yours alone. The bliss belongs to everybody. All right? So it's not when we hear the word bliss, it's not something that when the experience of bliss happens, it's everywhere. It's everyone, and it belongs to everyone and everywhere. It's everywhere and it belongs to everyone. All right. So when we see then the tantric deities, let's say consort, a deity and consort. That doesn't mean the obvious thing either. So again, because we're sex, drugs, rock and roll culture. So when we see anything that gives us the slightest little hint to go that way mentally, we think that's what it means too. That must be that what they're really talking about in Tantra is to do a specific type of meditation while you're having sex. And there's some truth to that, but mostly that's not what the art is depicting. Okay, the masculine is two things that they're depicting in that. The first is that the masculine deity or masculine consort represents the level of concentration that penetrates into the womb of emptiness and is received by the womb of emptiness. And the most obvious metaphor we have is the penetrating action that's received by a womb, yes? Okay, so that's what that means. That's in that first layer of understanding that artwork. That's what that means. That the masculine is concentration that penetrates into the womb of emptiness that receives it. All right? And then when that happens, then there's a consummation and the magnet flips around. So it's like we see the feminine, mostly we see the feminine with the back to us if we're looking at a tanka, right? And that means that if your consciousness succeeds in penetrating into the womb of emptiness and is received by it, and you experience consummation, then you become the feminine consort in the equation, and that reality then repenetrates into you, and then you receive the experience of the consummation itself, which is the electrical, the magnetic flip around. So first you penetrate into the thing, you get accepted and received, and then you get penetrated back. You become the feminine in the equation, and at that moment, if you feel what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to clarify some of maybe this falls more in the Vajrayana dialogue, but who knows where these ideas come from? Only the oracle. So just thinking about what concepts are around that sometimes get in the way of us understanding the complexity in some way of the systems that we're importing. That is, the fundamental view is that life is blissful. And if there's anything that I need to purify, it's me being the bane of my own existence. Not that I need to purify my essence in order to become something else, but that I just need to get out of my own way. And number two, that the bliss is not something that an individual experiences alone. That's not what they mean by bliss, not by getting really twisted or high, or even having like a very, very intense, pleasurable, orgasmic experience. That's not what they mean by bliss. They mean have there's the ultimate bliss of the concentration that enters the womb that then flips on itself and receives that understanding of consummation, and everything else then is like the fake it till you make it attempt to experience a similar type of bliss, which is how can I, right now, from this point of view, interface with others in a way that mirrors that activity as much as possible, which is joyful, creative, responsible, compassionate action.